I realized that I had burnt out. I was subscribing to the work-life balance fallacy, kind of coming out, going back into the workforce after doing some caretaking and a little consulting work. I was going real full back into work full time. And I just realized that I was believing something that was no longer serving me, which is that what I put in, I could get out. Work-life balance, equal parts. And I spent time with myself reflecting on that. And of course, like thinking about like how the work was involved, like their ability to support me. And I started to just realize that, wait a minute, we got some real issues here going on. And a lot of that, those myths that I was believing, other people believe too. So it's through that experience that I started to work on breaking up with work-life balance, is what I say. And the idea there is I approach mental well-being in a new way.
Welcome to Public Health Careers. I'm your host, Omari Richards, founder of the Public Health Millennial. We're going to dive deep into public health topics and career journeys. You'll hear diverse career stories, absorb professional development and career strategies, get tips, while also learning from others to help you in your own journey and learning of public health. Learn about the vast world of public health careers, or just hear public health stories. Stay tuned so we can do our part towards a culture of health, well-being, and equity for all. Hey friends, welcome to Public Health Careers. Jennice Chewlin is the founder and CEO of Chewlin Group. She helps companies who give a damn about the health and well-being of their workforce reduce stress, prevent burnout, and return to joy. They designed an innovative model for workplace mental well-being by leveraging public health principles and positive psychology models. She conferred a Bachelors of Psychology at Florida Atlantic University, then conferred a Master of Public Health at Broward University. In today's episode, you'll hear and learn more about the importance of workplace and employee mental well-being to drive forward impactful work, how she works to amplify joy in the workplace through an innovative model, the importance of health education work and how this work can vary by environment. She also shares why we need to be gentle with ourselves on our journeys and fight against comparison, as well as much, much more. I almost forgot. If you have not joined the community as yet, be sure to join. The link is below, or you can go to thephmillennial.com/join. The community is going to be a place to connect with other like-minded people, as well as learn. Become a founder so that you can really help us develop and build a community before we launch it more broadly. But it's closing on Wednesday, February the 21st. So be sure to join today, and I look forward to having you. Enjoy the episode.
Hi, this is Jennice Chewlin, and I'm a workplace well-being consultant helping organizations who give a damn about the health and well-being of their team. And you are listening to Public Health Careers.
Jennice, welcome to the show. I'm so glad to have you on, and I'm looking forward to digging more into your journey and the work that you're doing. Before we get into anything, can you just tell us how you identify and maybe share a little bit about your personal background?
Yes, I am Jennice Chewlin. I identify with pronouns she, her, ella. I identify as Latina. I do have Asian heritage by way of my Peruvian mother. And I speak English and I say Spanglish, and I often joke that my Spanish is like my salsa dancing. I can get by with one or two songs, And what I like to do if I'm not doing work stuff is exploring nature with my family, reading, and playing soccer.
Love it, love it, love it. And I love the intersectionality of all things. Also love playing soccer as well. So that is also that we have that in common. And I'm glad that they just shared all about the different varied backgrounds that you come from and how you show up in this work. I think is important. I'm looking forward to just hearing how your journey has led you and all those intersections have led you into the work that you're doing.
Thank you, Omari. It's a pleasure to be here.
The pleasure is mine. It's been a long time coming, as I told you before we started recording. We've been connected online, and glad to get you on and share more about your story. So just now, you're sharing that your work is very focused on helping organizations give a damn about the health and well-being of their employees. Tell us more about that.
Yeah, I chose Give a Damn because I want to communicate to exactly who I want to partner with. And these are folks who get it, who understand that their biggest asset, their workforce is important to invest in and to provide tools and education to help them feel their best selves, because what we know is that when we show up to work, we don't take off other parts of ourselves for the most part. At work, we show up as our whole selves, and we want more workplaces to start being accepting of that, of their whole self. So that's why I have the Give a Damn. That and just personal experience that during a work transition, realizing a couple things. One is that my work didn't know how to give a damn about my health and well-being. They didn't know how, I should say. And because of that, I hid parts of my identity because I thought that they would be used against me. And so one that may relate to many is being a working parent. I didn't want anyone to know that I was a parent because there's assumptions and stereotypes attached to that identity. And I didn't want it played out. So it took about, 6 or 7 months before I was honest and truthful about it.
There's a lot to dig into there. And I appreciate you bringing this up because this is something that I think is very important, especially in the younger generation. They're thinking about how do I come into a workforce that literally gives a damn about me as a whole human being. Like just knowing that being able to show up as your authentic self is so important for your well-being as a person in so many different ways. And I always think back to just graduating my master's of public health program, moved to Alaska as a black guy with dreadlocks, and like generally I bathe and I put my hair up, so my hair is like up in a bun above my head. And I went into the office that day with my hair above my head because I just forgot, because after I bathed, went to the office and I just felt so uncomfortable. And I always think back to that day and think back to the work that I do and the organization I work in right now, and just how different the culture is to allow me to show up that way and feel accepted and feel appreciated. And I just think that is something that is so important. And I've just experienced that dynamic in my short career in public health, that's for, but I just know how impactful that was for me and is for me to be able to show up, and how important it is for me to feel a commitment to an organization that also does care about me as a person.
Exactly. You touched on the importance of well-being and the relationship with showing up as your authentic self. And I oftentimes will say to a client that I'm meeting for the first time, and it's my way of checking, kind of seeing if they do give a damn, is I'll say, if you want to improve the well-being at your place of work, you start with belonging. And we have a conversation about what that means, what that looks like. And that's my way of teasing out how to get to know them as a client, because I want to work with clients who are values aligned with me and my business. That's how I can deliver the best product service for them. And it's part of my mission of advancing health equity and amplifying mental health. But there was something else you said too, which is that like you value now that your place of work makes you feel proud and good to show up as your whole human self. And by saying that, they're benefiting from that. They directly benefit from you showing up as your authentic self, feeling proud about it, knowing that there's not going to be any backlash or discomfort. They benefit from your creativity now, your productivity, and your willingness to help other team members. So it's a win-win.
And in your work, you have an innovative model to work-based mental being. Tell us more about that model.
Yeah, so I took my personal experience with the other thing I was mentioning of what happened during a work transition is I realized that I had burnt out. I was subscribing to the work-life balance fallacy, kind of coming out, going back into the workforce after doing some caretaking and a little consulting work. I was going real full back into work full time. And I just realized that I was believing something that was no longer serving me, which is that what I put in, I could get out. Work-life balance, equal parts. And I spent time with myself reflecting on that. And of course, like thinking about like how the work was involved, like their ability to support me. And I started to just realize that, wait a minute, we got some real issues here going on. And a lot of that, those myths that I was believing, other people believe too. So it's through that experience that I started to work on breaking up with work-life balance, is what I say. And the idea there is I approach mental well-being in a new way, in that I spend time acknowledging what some of those myths are that create barriers. Because if we don't start with acknowledging systems and structures that keep some of these myths in place, the evidence-based tools won't reach us, because we're going to think something's wrong with us when it's not us. There's a system that's protecting those myths and perpetuating those myths that can start to get in the way. And that's, when you can start to cope in unhealthy ways. So my approach is to kind of take a couple of the public health belief models that I know about and have learned about, and now I can put into practice that, and using positive psychology models. And that's where a lot of the evidence-based stress reduction tools come from, looking at the importance of self-care, but again, through the lens of acknowledging that a lot of the barriers are wrapped up in myths that live in systems and structures that don't serve us.
And it's important to have people that are able to help us shift those like limiting beliefs and see that there are ways to provide this. And in your work, you do a lot of work around amplifying joy. Can you tell us why that's important and how you do that type of work?
Yeah, well, the response is, why not joy? Because so often we're taught that joy has to be delayed or earned, when joy is a tool, a mental well-being tool. But because we subscribe to a myth that keeps joy from us, we start to lose touch with what it feels like, what's the meaning behind it, or we reserve it for just the holidays. And I don't believe so. I believe joy is our birthright, and that no one can take joy away from us. And it is part of the whole, like, give a damn. Like, at the end of the day, it's my joy that gets me through tough times. And it's joy that helps build communities so that we can create these protective factors to help us through really challenging moments. Because if there's one thing that we need to know, is that stress will always be around. We'll never, it will never get down to zero, but there are ways that we can uplift ourselves and rejuvenate ourselves and bring levity to really tough moments in our life. So how I bring that in work is through our education and training services. I love talking about joy because you can see the change, the transformation in people's posture, faces, laughter, and joy begets joy. And that is a big reason why we are very joy-centered. It's one of our business core values. And that just comes from because we know the science behind joy, and we know how it could help improve well-being and help build community.
I like the idea of the practice of joy, and joy being something that we can actively practice and get better at, and just like realize that there are so many ways that we can be joyful for the things that we have. Because, like, as you were saying, there's always going to be a challenge in life, but at the same point in time, there are so many things to be joyful for. It's just cultivating that practice of understanding that.
Yeah, exactly. And so one of the ways that I approach, a new innovative model to mental well-being is that I hope, and my desire based on feedback, I see that I help create little bite-sized, tangible ways to digest information. Because at the end of the day, I'm a health educator at heart. So I'm here to help inform so folks can make better decisions for themselves. And so yes, we do training, we do education, but a lot of it is rich in dialogue and conversations and group learning cohorts to exchange knowledge. Not just it coming from me as a facilitator or health educator, but bringing folks together who can share tools or collaborate on a challenge together. So we do that kind of work as well.
You mentioned something earlier around you make sure that you work with businesses that are value aligned with you. And in that, I believe that there's a process of saying no to people that might reach out to you. Can you explain more about that to us?
How do I know who do I work with?
Yeah.
Yeah. First, I think it's important to communicate what your values are. So I have it right up on my website, centerfold. And when I talk with folks, I'm hearing their stories and what they're concerned about. And I'm checking to see if they're looking to check a box or they're looking to really improve the culture of well-being. They're seeing that maybe there's some exhaustion going on and they're trying to bring in levity, or they're trying to amplify whatever's being done at work regarding learning and development training around stress management. They're just looking for a new, fun, innovative way. And so I'm listening for how they're telling their story and how they're sharing their needs with me, as opposed to how fast can you come in and one and done approach. That's, I always explain, like, I'm not looking for a one and done, and my services don't get offered in one and done. I create a package to show that it's obviously a value, but that I'm really looking to understand where we're at, where everyone's at, and then helping everyone connect together. So I might not be able to do it in one session. Maybe it's a series. Maybe it's from that experience, a couple really enthusiastic folks want deeper work. So then we do that group learning cohort.
What does public health mean to you?
Oh, public health means to me prevention, from your eyes opening up in your normal day, from when you go to sleep. I see public health in every area of life. I have a family, so I have kids that I think about all the time on how to keep them safe and how to support and amplify their mental health and their community, their school community. But one thing that I think about, even in being a public health professional, that I started doing with my kids is a lot of role playing. I started my work in like tobacco prevention. And so when I had kids, like, we would go through role plays of, okay, what do you do if someone wants to try a cigarette? How do you say no? Because we all know you need practice to say no for your voice to feel comfortable. Well, public health to me means standard things of like prevention, intervention, protection, policy, systems, and also hope, healing, and justice.
Love that. I also love you saying that you have to teach the practice of saying no so that you feel comfortable in it, which I think is something that we don't think about a lot, but it's definitely a mental model of just learning the ability to say no is something that we aren't maybe taught enough intentionally. Maybe, I don't know, but that's interesting.
No, you're not alone. When we talk about building better boundaries, there's a few slides worth about how to say no. Sometimes no is a complete sentence.
Right.
Sometimes you need some practice, and we have scenarios in our workshops just because of that, Omari.
Makes sense. Makes sense. Looks like you're bringing a lot of great tools to the table.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're most welcome. And before you founded and were CEO of Chewlin Group, you got your Bachelors of Psychology at Florida Atlantic University. Tell us about that thought process.
Yes, I graduated high school thinking that I knew exactly what I was going to do, and that was I was going to be a family and marriage counselor. I thought that that was the track I wanted to pursue, having experienced, family counseling myself, and I knew I had that service heart that I wanted to give to others. So I did the psychology track at FAU, thinking that's where I was going to end up, and then through some counseling, I realized that it was a longer track than I had anticipated. I thought I would be able to graduate and start practicing and, earning hours, but it turns out it wasn't like that, at least at the time. So I didn't want to pursue that anymore. And I really was, I also have a minor in sociology. So I've always been very curious about human behavior. And I think that's why it's not really a big surprise to me that I moved on into public health.
And during your time as an undergrad student, you were an office manager at Family Physician Services Incorporated. Tell us about that experience.
Yeah, well, that was a really great experience for two reasons. One is it was my father's practice. And I feel very proud to say that because my dad worked really hard in achieving that milestone. And so to work for him felt really gratifying. But two, I got to see healthcare system in action. And, he was a family physician. And so there's a lot of prevention within the practice naturally, but there was also a lot of medicine and treatment. So that also piqued my interest about what we were treating. I asked a lot of questions about what, causes of like why someone gets sick. So there was some like epidemiology curiosity I had going on. But all in all, it was a wonderful experience, but that also opened my eyes to our healthcare system and insurance companies. And that taught me a lot of tenacity, persistence, those skills I still use today because there's a healthcare system problem in the United States, and I recognize that even back then.
And thinking about this experience and initially thinking about becoming a family mental health counselor, how did like public health come into your lens, or like what was that process for you?
So it was a merging of like knowing that I wanted to be a helper, and I was curious about behavior change, why someone does something or why they don't. And then also like working in the family practice, you think, well, why don't they just do this and then they don't have to take that medicine? All of that really stirred together in my mind of, well, why, what influences behavior? There's that psychology piece still coming through pretty strong. And it turned out there's a science to understand why people behave the way they do, and that's public health. So I, at the time, was exploring what I wanted to do after I graduated. And we can go on to that when you're ready, Omari. Sorry.
No, you're fine. You have nothing to be sorry about. It is a natural story, and that is how it all works out. And I think it's just important to highlight that many times we go into undergrad or just go into any type of profession just thinking that we want to do one thing, and then as we learn and as we grow, our mind changes or we expand, or like what we think we can do or like what is available to us. And that is many times the path into public health. But before you got your master's of public health, were there any undergrad takeaways that you wanted to share with us?
Yes, I did get a chance to travel, and that is how I also got a taste of public health. I went to Belize for a sexual health volunteer project regarding sexual health in the community. And I would say the biggest takeaway, if you can, obviously travel. But what I mean is not just the physical sense. Like if you can, great. But if you can't, travel through books, travel through interviewing other folks who are doing the work that you're interested in. And I have to say that my takeaway is that I don't think I had a strong network in undergrad. I had friends, obviously, but as far as like career network, I don't know if I had that. So if anyone is looking like to make some changes, or if I could give advice around that, is to try to find different clubs to get into or associations. I think that would have been helpful for me, because I do feel like I explored this career change and transition very much on my own, alone, and that's just not a good feeling. And I see what you're doing, Omari, and it's beautiful, because community helps support change, helps people feel like they're not alone in making big changes, and so I think it's wonderful.
Fundamentally, the public health millennial was based on just sharing information, because when I was in my master's of public health program, I wish somebody shared that information with me. And I think that's important. I love the takeaway of travel, not only being specifically traveling to a place, but using books, in informational interviews, clubs, associations to really divulge and get to know what is available. And I guess we can add like Apple Vision Pro and other VR technologies there as
That's
well,
right.
going forward to really amplify and just create a broader sense of what the world is. Because I think that's one thing, as you learn, like it's a small circle, and then you learn more and you learn more, and the more you learn, the more you know that there is to learn, and there's an endless bound in thinking through that way. But yeah, I think it's so important. So I appreciate you raising that up.
Yeah, great.
And then you got your master's of public health in public health education and promotion at Broward University. So tell us about that thought process.
Well, I will tell you that, as I mentioned, that I was curious about public health. And so I spent some time doing informational interviews with folks. While I didn't have that in undergrad, that network, I started kind of again through my natural curiosity to try to reach people who were doing work that I was interested in. And that led me to folks at a county health department. And they let me interview the director of the health department, and wonderful conversations, like what you were saying, like just giving away information, because they saw that I was curious and I needed a little direction on what I wanted to do, and it was going to be possibly public health. So they were really excited about that. And because of that, put me in touch with the counties. The position was an inaugural wellness coordinator for the county. And that was huge, because that was putting someone in the position to lead wellness and integrate different departments to work together and collaborate to benefit the community and their needs. So I thought that was so special that I got a chance to talk with her, and she saw something in me. And I asked her in preparation for this, and she's like, I just saw the curiosity in you, Jennice, that you really thought public health was gonna be your transition, but you wanted to be sure. So I took the steps to interview her, and how I got into grad school is a funny story, because I did my informational interview with her in person at her office. And I told her that my next step was to start looking for programs. And she's like, you know what? I'm going to get you in touch with the director of public health at Bayer University. And within one conversation, one call, I found myself that weekend enrolled in their master's program to take classes. I just had such a great conversation, and he confirmed for me the conversations I was having with others about, is public health right? Is what I want to do the work that I can do in public health? And they affirmed it for me. And so I never looked back after that. I will say, though, I think my dad was surprised, because he had visions for me, especially working so hard and opening up his own practice. He had expectations. And so I could see that that was probably a little disappointing for him. However, like any great parent, they supported me anyways and said, okay, if this is what you want to do, all right. And then a small tear, like, okay, my dreams for you.
Two things I want to highlight there. Like, firstly, being curious is just so important, no matter which part of your journey is. Like, reaching out and like actioning on that curiosity. Like, oh, like public health is kind of interesting to me. Is it actually something that I want to do? Reach out to people, have those conversations, and then from that, who would have known that it would have led to a connection to someone at a school that would help you to get into a Masters of Public Health program? I think that is really awesome on you to just share, and I think that's something that anyone can do out there. You mightn't always get a response from someone, but follow up, reach out to someone else. There are always people that are willing to chat with you. So definitely do that, because you never know what you're going to learn, how that connection is going to help you in your journey.
Absolutely, Omari. Reach out. Of course, you're going to hear a lot of no's, but a piece of advice is to assume acceptance. Assume that people are willing to give you a 30-minute chat and share with you. I mean, we're in the age of technology too now. I didn't have LinkedIn back then. Now you can leverage LinkedIn. And it's true what you say. If one person says no, you move on to the next, or you find those communities where folks can network a lot easier than it was back then.
Absolutely. LinkedIn is a huge, huge help in this regard. And I think, like, just to make it real for some people out there, like, even though I have this platform, I have this podcast, I reach out to people sometimes and I get no's or I get no responses. And that doesn't stop me from reaching out to the next person. So just know that, like, it happens to everyone in every way. Just know that you just have to keep going.
You do. And I mean, that was when I was, between undergrad and grad school. But now, like you're saying, it happens throughout life. I'm in a new community. I moved to New England. And so I had to start all over again to build community. And same thing, like you have to be curious to get to know your community. Who are the change makers who are doing work that you want to be in the space with? And I've had a great response, and I really encourage folks to give it a try.
And the second thing you brought up there that I want to highlight or like ask you more about is, I think many times in our lives, our parents have a vision for who we are going to be, what they want us to be, etc., etc. And many times it's hard for us to kind of like shed that weight, shed that belief, shed that vision for ourselves from them. What was that thought process like for you?
I acknowledged that there was going to be some hurt, because I wasn't going to be doing what he was hoping I would be, which is pursue medicine. And I acknowledged that. And so I was soft with my delivery of the news, but also had some confidence to show them that, listen, this is a big change, because I've been saying I wanted to do therapy for a long time. And I'm making a change. I'm asking you to trust me, and it's hard. I mean, especially, first generation folks who are going to school and have to shed that. There is no easy way to do it. And I had to confront it years later again, even though you think like everyone's kind of over it. You got your degree, you're in your career. It finds ways to revisit. And I think it's about communication, talking about it. And my approach is that I talk a lot about how proud I am of the work that I'm doing. And so I'll make calls and say like, oh, listen to the feedback I got on this, or look what someone's wants me to design a training on. So I keep it very also enthusiastic and include them in my journey.
Before we get back to the show, are you looking to be part of a community of like-minded people to grow your public health career and impact? If you feel like you're forever balancing competing priorities, struggle to stay up to date with the newest trends in public health, or want to upskill your professional development, you're not alone. Come join our growing community of public health change makers where you can connect authentically, create meaningful relationships, build your brand, and discuss various career and public health insights. Early access to the community will open for a brief period of time starting on February 14th, so be sure to join and help us build a stronger public health community together. Now back to the show. While you were in your master's program at Broward University, you had an internship with the Directors of Health Promotion and Education at Broward County Health Department. Tell us more about that experience.
Yeah, so my placement was at Broward County Health Department, and that was a wonderful internship because it was paid. And back then that was very, very, I don't think of the model that most people used, but I liked it because I was in a cohort, again, that community piece. I was in a cohort with other folks who were in public health doing health education, and they gave us training, gave us access to education, frameworks, because of course I was going to school, I was in my master's, but we got access to case studies and we talked about them. And then we also used our place of work where we were doing the internship to match our activities with the objectives of the program that helped us streamline into health education. So really looking at applying theory to your work, if that makes sense, like really saying it's not just about a health belief model, but where in your work and your tasks as your internship are you helping people acknowledge what barriers might be, or moving them through pre-contemplative stage to contemplative stage. So I liked it because it was hands-on, it was tangible. It wasn't just learning and being informed about theories, but we got a chance to practice it. And then they invited us all to the APHA conference, which was, we got to meet everybody in person, and it was a great experience.
What was the experience like for you going to APHA, both for that cohort experience and just being at the conference?
I was overwhelmed.
That's real though. That's real.
Yeah, I was overwhelmed. It truly is a conference, meaning there's a lot going on at the same time. So I had to be strategic in where I wanted to go, and oftentimes was left exhausted. But also it was special because I got to connect with my cohort, and we developed relationships and friendships and got a chance to talk about our work and meet the leaders of the DHPE internship. So it was good. I liked it. I unfortunately haven't been back at APHA, but hope to in the future. It's definitely on my bucket list again.
Yeah, it is still very overwhelming, but also very energizing.
Yeah, that's a good word. It's energizing. Yes, it could be both and, right?
It absolutely is both and but I definitely advocate for people to go there just because there's just so many things you can learn, so many connections you can make with people. You never know. And APHA was one of the places that really opened up my eyes to public health and just how expansive the field is.
Yes. Because I want to share with you, Omari, a little bit about my field in public health. when I was going into my master's, we were studying all these different fields in public health. And we even had podiatrists, a cohort of podiatrists in our program who were doing dual degrees. And, I loved learning about law and public health, epidemiology, but there was something about health education that felt like that was for me. And as I was learning about it, and doing like my dissertation and studying and researching, I realized that, it confirmed for me that health education and health promotion is where I love to be in public health.
And do you have any advice for people that might be trying to figure out where they might want to be in public health and the process around that?
I hope that if folks are in school or in their college, undergrad, or in graduate school and they're in public health, I would pay attention to any sparks that go off when you're studying the different fields. Make a note of it and then follow up, meaning where did that come from? What was it about that information, case study, literature review that excited you? Because something in there needs to be found and paid attention to, because we have so much thrown at us in school that it's very, very likely that we're just like moving on to the next thing. But take a minute, even if you're done with school and you graduate and you're like, I don't really know what fields I want to go in. Do an assessment of what you really liked, what stories you liked. That's what I would do, is to start, just paying attention and taking notice of anything.
I love that. And I think one thing that I just add is that as you pay attention and as those things pop up, just really try to find roles and people in roles that are doing work around that. And then having those informational interviews, as Jennice was talking about, as they're so fundamental to just building a broader knowledge as well as you build your network while doing that.
Absolutely. And leverage what you already have access to. It can be overwhelming to try to build a bridge, but you might have access to a couple steps before you even need to get to that bridge building. So I would look at, again, like what's available at your school. And if not at your school, I think nowadays, because of technology, universities can, lend programs or memberships or even trainings across that you can access, maybe for a small fee, or if you join a membership, they could cover you. Things like that, I think is different from what I had, but that's what I would be doing if I was in school again and I had to, build my own network.
And after you graduated with your MPH, you became a program manager at American Lung Association. How do you come across that, and what do you do in that role?
Yeah, so that came from relationship building my network. While I was in the internship, I was attending coalition meetings. Part of that, the wellness coordinator was having these coalition meetings, and they got used to seeing me and hearing me. And so when there was a job opening, I confidently applied, thinking, they know me and they know my style of work. So when I applied for it, I had just graduated with my MPH and was excited to start working in public health. And at the time, it was a grant funded position. And, public health, a lot of things are grant funded. And I was really concerned about that because I know instability and I didn't want to be unstable anymore. And I had asked about that. I remember asking about that in my job interview, and I'm going to share this because I think it's going to be helpful. And when I asked, hey, I noticed this is grant funded, what would that mean for me if funds run out? And the leader was saying, oh, we don't let anything happen to our workers. We'll find another position for you, no problem. And I will say that I, took that advice to heart. But then what happened is, 2008, there was the recession, and it didn't matter if she wanted to keep me or not. She had no say. And I share that because you have to be careful, especially in public health with grant funds and the work that you're trying to pursue. Sometimes it feels like you can't get too attached because, hey, the funds are going to run out, or it's so stressful because people do want to keep you and they're going to try their best, but it's very stressful as you start seeing the calendar and your date approaching. So I share that to say, like, be mindful of promises. Know that because sometimes when work is grant funded, it means that there is some in uncertainty there. And so you have to just recognize that.
That is real. That is real. And I think consideration that people definitely have to think about, especially considering that. I think it's like always looking at what is best for you as a person, and if there are other opportunities that have less risk per se, and to the point Jennice was saying, like, ask the question in the interview, because I think it's important. And then also understanding that some things are out of the control of the people, regardless of if they want you or want to keep you. So just understanding like that as a reality in nonprofit world, in public health world,
it's real.
Is something. Yep.
It's real. And because of that experience, it has informed me now as a consultant. Is like being mindful of, like, as much as people may want to work with me, I have to be mindful about, things can change because it's grant work or nonprofit work.
All the experiences and lessons that we learn relate to the further experiences and lessons and the work that we do in the future. I think it's just so important to take the lessons as we are getting them, receive them, and then use that to inform how we approach work, as you just shared in that very tangible example.
Yeah, that's real intelligence right there. Learning and then taking the lessons and then applying.
Right. So sounds like public health program evaluation.
Yeah.
But it's real though. It's real.
Yeah.
And then after your role as a program manager, you became a senior health educator at Broward County Health Department. Tell us about that.
Okay. Well, the timeline of that is the recession happened. So I had lost my job because of the recession. And then similarly, I was already working with the health department from my previous job in that coalition building, relationship building, working on a work plan together. And I didn't share like what I worked on at the American Lung Association, which was I was a program manager to a youth tobacco cessation program. So my work was health education 101. I had community engagement skills I was using. I was connecting with youth and then delivering and managing a program and a budget. So it was all encompassing in that way. And then when I went over to the health department, they saw what had happened, with the recession, and what ultimately happened is that the state absorbed the work plan of the state initiative. So it was a natural fit for me to keep doing the work, but with them. And I happily said yes, because these are people that I was already working with back from my internship days. So I got to see old friends and old colleagues. But what was unique about this, but about working in the health department and now working on that initiative, is I got to see how plans changed from program planning, a lot of program work, and they shifted to policy work in the health department, where they were working on, again, coalition building so that they could advocate at the local and state level around policies that would keep people from starting to smoke, help people who were smoking, prevent youth from seeing cigarette ads at gas stations, and even testing convenience stores for identification. It was really interesting. I mean, I got to see that shift, and because I was curious, I was like, what, this is it wasn't heavily of what I learned in public health, or I should say what I remembered. What I remembered was a lot of program implementation and program design, I guess because that's my trade anyways. But if I go back and look at what I did learn, yeah, there's a lot of systems and policy control and initiatives, but I got to see it firsthand working in the health department, which was interesting for me.
That is a fundamental process that I think is not done enough. Essentially, getting coalitions of people that are interested in certain topics and then using that voice to leverage for advocacy at the state and local level so that there are policies and there are change structures that allow for better health. And I think that is a lot of the work that needs to be done in public health. And I think also to add to that is how do we sustain that power of those coalitions to continue to push up against the forces that want to get things back into status quo and in fact just create like the health disparities, health inequities that exist today. So I just want to highlight that as like a fundamental model that we need to continue to deliver in public health so that communities are the voice for the change that happens at that policy level.
Absolutely, yes.
After this role, you became a program consultant at Community Foundation of the Virgin Islands.
Yes. That came because I had relocated to the Virgin Islands and I wanted to use my public health muscles still, even though I had, was transitioning from South Florida into a new community. And I also, will mention that I was also the primary caretaker for my young child at the time. So I had to manage these, different desires and expectations I had for myself. And I think that's when a lot of the subscription to this myth of, well, if I'm not a working, public health practitioner, then am I any good? Like having like a loss of sense of value, I think was really tough for me. And I think many of your listeners may resonate with that because it could be any type of situation where your attention has to turn from your career, or you have to now manage two very big demanding things in your life, because it could be a caretaking for a elderly parent or a chronic illness. And so I share that to just kind of humanize this experience that a career journey is not linear. It's very, has a lot of peaks and valleys. But when I found myself in the Virgin Islands, I had the skills because I was a public health professional. I had the skills on how to navigate community resources. And that helped me find community. So I joined my local La Leche League. I found a early childhood partnership group, and I started to meet other like-minded folks. And because of that, again, like I was building my own personal community and folks were interested in what I had been doing. The current program coordinator for that role was leaving and knew that I was in public health and I had worked with youth in Broward County. So she put me in touch with the Community Foundation of the Virgin Islands. And I, shared with them what I had done. And I took the program that they had, which was to help. They wanted to be a bridge between after school youth and the service model of, volunteerism, that it feels good to serve others in our community who are in need. So the job was to connect youth to different nonprofits in the community, the Humane Society, a theater group, an after-school tutoring program, and a variety of those. And what I was able to do was enhance the model, because I had that public health lens to figure out, okay, where are we? Where do we want to go? And what can we use to get there? A big piece of that was evaluation. So I evaluated the students. What do you like this program? What do you like? What don't you like? What do you want to see more of? And we made tweaks to meet their needs. And, I heard back from like students that a big challenge was like, how do I get from school to my nonprofit? It's hard to walk. Sometimes it's raining. So then we started a stipend system to help with snacks and transportation costs. And so evaluation was a big piece of that. I really put on my program design hat there to kind of connect all the pieces to help us lead us towards the outcome of students who are like, volunteerism, giving back to my community is important, because, and now you see it that question all the time on scholarship applications and college applications. They want to know, like, are you invested in your community and in what way? And so I had a really great time doing that for several years. And they've been a great partner. Even now, as a consultant, I do some well-being work with them.
Public health is nonlinear, and I think you highlighted that in just sharing that story, as well as I think one of the things is important to know is like you can transfer your skill set of public health to different work, to different places. And I think even more important in what you're sharing there is that you were showing up in spaces to build community, as well as showing up and sharing that, "Oh, I have this public health background, I have this skill set." And then things aligned that allowed you to go into a position. And now not only were you able to like do the work well, but you were able to expand the work to really bring that public health lens and make the work more effective. And then on top of that, from being a good person working at the organization and building a good relationship, now you even are able to work with them in the consulting work that you're doing right now. And I think that is awesome. And I'm glad that we're able to highlight that type of connection and just how a journey in public health can unfold.
That's right. And if I could give advice, is like, be gentle with yourself on this public health journey. We compare ourselves often to people who are in places that we want to be in, but we just need a little bit of time. And so we kind of beat ourselves up that we're not there yet, or we haven't caught a break yet, or we don't know the right people. But I say be gentle with yourself, because it does take time. It does take effort to nurture relationships. It's not a quick thing. So just be mindful of that, and know that wherever you end up in public health is where you're supposed to be for that season of life. And then when your curiosity takes you somewhere else and you want to transition, be gentle with yourself again, that it's okay to change our mind and go a different route.
It is actually a superpower to change your mind and go a different route, because as we live our life, we learn more and we learn more about ourselves, as well as I think the important part of just having seasons in your life and understanding like everything doesn't have to be forever. There are different periods in our life that different things happen, and taking those chances and building those experiences are enriching. And that in itself is the beauty of life, as well as the beauty of like doing work in public health, that you're able to do so much different things.
That's right. That's right. There is beauty in change.
Absolutely. And you were a Sandy Hook Promise presenter at Sandy Hook Promise. And I believe this was around gun violence and bullying in South Florida. Tell us about this.
Yes. Sandy Hook Promise is an organization, national organization that advocates for smart gun policy change and has programming to keep kids safe from self-harm or other people harming them, and a bullying prevention program as well. So I connected with them when I had moved back to South Florida. I had left the Virgin Islands. So as you can follow my journey, there's a lot of movement, and it really is about being resourceful and keeping at it. So I saw a job opening with them, and it was like, I swear it had my name on it, because it was trainings, it was delivering, and it was about a very important topic that is close to my heart, which is gun violence prevention. So it just felt like so aligned, like it was a gift for me to apply. And I did get the job. I became a trainer. This was in their early stages of offering free school trainings to give kids the tools and methods to report if they see something, but also other signs to look out for if they notice someone is lonely or fascinated with things that they maybe shouldn't be. And it was a really great experience because I met people from all sorts of different fields: educators, public health folks, retirees, people from corporate world who were same thing. They were aligned with the mission of this work, and I was able to train, easily over 2,000 kids in their programming, that help give them the tools to help keep themselves safe and others who might need it.
That's awesome. And I think that like multi-pronged approach of thinking about it, not only training the kids, but thinking about how do we get safer gun policies. And I know I don't have to preach to the choir to the people that are listening to this or to you around the importance of that and the lack of action that we've seen from a lot of our leadership around the country. So I will not talk about that, but I think it is very, very important work that is definitely a public health crisis in today's world.
Yeah, yep. And needs a public health solution.
Absolutely. So if anyone's out there and is interested, there's a lot of good work out there that we need you to do
Step
and
up,
support around.
yeah, and support and become a leader that's helping change the laws that can not only impact us, but future generations.
So you currently work as a health educator for a large health insurance company, and you've worked there for over 6 years. Tell us, how do you come into that work and what do you do there?
Yeah, so I was hired as a health educator, and I'm also CHES, Certified Health Education Specialist. And this organization was looking to hire CHES specifically. And so I felt like I fit their need. They were looking for someone who had experience with delivering trainings and sharing health information that would help others connect with the knowledge, and then also make small actionable changes. So a lot of this work was lunch and learns, these 1 hour spots. And I liked doing them because I love trainings. I love being at the front and center and sharing information and helping folks connect to the information. But what was unique about this role that's different than Sandy Hook Promise, which was only delivery, meaning I studied the curriculum, we actually gave feedback to make tweaks, but it was really all about delivery at Sandy Hook Promise. What I liked about this role in the large insurance company is that I got a chance to also develop these trainings. So do research, collect statistics, look up evidence-based or evidence-informed, practical tools, and I got to compile this to make presentations. So it was through this experience that I was like, oh, this is great. Putting this together is like a program. I've always been in program management, program design. This is like a fun way to do it in a light touch, for a 1 hour session. So I enjoy doing that. More of my help now is again creating the curriculum or the trainings, and it kind of like led me to what I'm doing now, which is putting together training and education as well.
And what sorts of advice do you have for people in public health that are interested in doing health education work? What are like some of the tips that you would give them to be a more effective health educator?
Oh, that's a great question. no matter what your role is, a health educator is reaching an audience. So my advice is to know your audience. And so no matter what role you're in, whether it's this training role or you're in community engagement, know your audience. And so I mean that in the most wide spectrum way. I'm talking about having conversations with your audience, whether it's, informational interviews or a coffee chat, very informal, all the way through to formal learnings, which is, data, if there's any data, survey data that you can review, or literature reviews about, an area or your specific audience. In my case, in the work I do now, I always include a needs assessment before I go into any work I do. I don't want to make any assumptions. And so to cut down on those assumptions, I have to get to know my audience. So I have questions I ask a few folks. I have surveys that I give out, and that makes me a better informed health educator.
I think that is important. Knowing your audience is probably the most fundamental thing, because if you don't know your audience, then you can't provide information in a way that they are able to accept it, or like just can digest it in whatever way that you give it to them. So
That's
I appreciate
right.
you sharing that.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, and I think we have that, like, as health educators especially, we're like, well, we know you just got to stop doing this and this is going to happen. But we forget about all the layers that come with people and even yourself. So you got to work through that, and you might not get it right, and that's okay. How do you recover? How do you repair and then get back at it?
Yeah, it's an iterative process. You do and you learn and you adjust.
There you
And
go.
that's the cycle, right? What is your process for getting clients?
Okay, my process for getting clients at Chewlin Group has to do a lot with networking. Surprise! I think that's been a thread throughout my career, is the importance of a network. So what I mean by a network is connecting with people who may share a passion with what you're doing. And in my case, it's connecting with folks who have a need for the services that I provide, and also folks who get to know me on a personal level and understand my values, that they're willing to say my name in rooms I'm not in. And so that's been very helpful. So I have joined a few associations here. I joined Business Alliance for People of Color. I have joined New Hampshire Businesses for Social Responsibility. And again, I'm making strategic decisions about who I'm joining based on my values and a shared vision that we have together. And that's one of the biggest ways I did last year. Like 100% of my work came through referrals. People that know me or knew someone, that referred me. And so I think that that's really important to highlight, because in a world where everything's so digital and, funnels driven and like getting your content right, nothing will ever replace the importance of networking and building connections.
Thank you for going back to that thread. What has been the biggest accomplishment or the most joyous moment of you being and doing this work?
Oh, the most joyous is seeing people's faces and their energy shift when they connect with each other and they get to know their coworker, their colleague in a new way. I just find so much joy in my work because I get to see that from the outside, and I know that it's going to benefit each other in perpetuity. Like, it's going to help enhance their relationship. They're going to follow up with each other about whatever they connected about. And for me, I feel so much joy in knowing that I'm a part of people feeling a sense of belonging while they're at work, and a reason that they find joy at work. Like I get hired because I am known as, the joy at work consultant, because I talk so much about the importance of joy and the benefits of joy. But at the end of the day, you feel joy. And so I just get so humbled to know that I'm part of that experience.
And before we move on to the Furious Five, where can people connect with you or the Chewlin Group? And where would you like to see yourself and the Chewlin Group in the future?
Sure. You can connect with me at my website, which is www.chewlingroup.com, or on LinkedIn. You can find me there at Jennice Chewlin. And where I hope to see Chewlin Group in the future is to continue serving those in my community, and for other folks who give a damn and want to be part of this movement that I'm helping to create, but also part of a system of creating belonging and inclusivity in its connection with well-being.
Well, we look forward to seeing all the great work that you do. We support you here at the Public Health Millennial, and thank you for that awesome work that you're doing and bringing joy.
Thank you, Omari. This has been wonderful.
It really is my pleasure. So moving on to the Furious Five, the 5 questions I ask all guests. Number 1, what advice would you give to a student trying to pursue a career in public health?
Advice I would give a student pursuing a career in public health would be the theme of tonight, which is curiosity. Like, explore why public health. Try to answer that question. And I think that will also help you pinpoint a field in public health that you're interested in. It could come from a movie. It could come from listening to your podcast, Omari. It could be attending a conference and never knowing that public health existed. Just like for me, I didn't really know about public health until I saw that it's a science behind, health behavior that has so many fields within it.
Number 2, if you're talking to someone wanting to get into your position, what advice would you give them?
Ooh, I would say it's okay to be afraid. Just do it anyways. There's a lot of things as an entrepreneur you may not know how to do, but you quickly learn that you can lean on folks in your community, start building your community, and keep track of who you're connecting with. Don't let it be a oblivious moment to connect. Keep track of people, save email addresses, their names, and keep in touch with them every so often, because as you change, you're going to want to update people, the people who want to support you and see you do well.
Great advice. Number 3, what's something you are working on improving in your life right now?
Something I'm improving on my life right now is going to be sleep. Okay? Because like most people, sleep is the first thing to go when we're trying to get more out of a day. But I have reached a point where I realize that I do not perform as well or feel as good if I don't get good quality sleep. So it's something I'm working on. I am, I'm not an expert yet on getting the amount that I need, but at least I'm in the step of acknowledging it and just tweaking a few things to see if that helps.
Sleep is an epidemic that we don't talk about enough, and I think it's important. So I'm glad that you are working towards that, and I hope more people are doing that. As I always I'm working and trying to be consistent in my sleep because I know how important it is for health as well as being productive and functional.
Yeah, I mean, it's a new development, about how the importance of sleep, and it should be taken seriously, and especially as we age, it really does affect your overall well-being. And you may not notice, if you're an undergrad and you have all of these things that you have to complete in deadlines, and you will say, oh, I'll just get sleep when I get my job and I'm done with school. I'm just here to tell you it doesn't get any better. There's more demands and more distractions. So setting a nice schedule up now, or in the season of life you're in now that fits here, I think is really helpful and approachable versus like, I get really overwhelmed and I'm like, oh, it's supposed to be 8. It's supposed to be 8, And I'm like, right now I'm just trying to work on a solid 6.
Yes, but prioritize your sleep, everyone.
Yes.
Definitely important. Number 4, professionally, do you recommend anything?
Yes, I think that if anyone wants to get to know our U.S. Surgeon General, Dr. Vivek Murthy, a little bit more, hop on over to his podcast. It's House Calls with Dr. Vivek Murthy. And here's why. He is super approachable with his podcast. He shares stories about himself. He brings on guests that you know and you recognize. And he has a really like easy tone of voice that makes listening to him like relaxing. So I share that because you get 2 for 1. It's like one about, he talks a lot about different public health issues. A big one right now is loneliness. But 2, it's like relaxing because he's just sharing stories and trying to connect with you in a very human-centered way.
Thank you for sharing that. I will add that to my podcast queue.
Yes, do.
And then last but not least, if there was one piece of advice you'd give to your younger self, what would it be?
One piece of advice I'd give to my younger self is don't stop. Don't stop. Keep going. It's okay if you haven't figured it out yet. And have fun along the way. If it ain't fun, don't do it. That's what I would say to my younger self. Yeah, I think I spent a lot of time doing for others. Like, we talked a little bit about what we're supposed to be doing, but the faster you get to knowing yourself and what your desires are, I think the more fulfilled life you'll have.
I could not agree with that anymore. I think that is so important in just developing ourselves as persons, as professionals. Jennice, thank you so much for coming on today, for sharing your expertise, for sharing your story. I enjoyed it a lot and I learned a lot as well.
Oh, Amari, thank you for everything that you do. And I really am looking forward to the community that you're opening up. And thank you for just keep doing this. I hope it's helpful.
Thank you so much. So housekeeping items, everyone. Thank you all so much for watching. Be sure to subscribe if you have not as yet. And as Jennice said, the community will be open as this is released. It will be closing in a couple of days. So be sure to join before it closes. It'll be a couple of months until it opens back up again. I will see you all next week. Goodbye, everyone.
Bye.